The first thing to mastering Southsides hi-hats is obviously using the right hi-hat samples. So if you don't know by now, the hit one, this is like the all-time trap hi-hat. This is Southside's like go-to hi-hat. Let's take a look at some of the variations and different ones that he would go for. So as you can see, this one has a little bit of attack on it and it's tighter. It's a little bit shorter. It'll sound different in the mix. And this is what the hit one sounds like right out of the box. So if you go into this one-shot mode right here, you can then turn this fader up and down to go ahead and make it tighter or less tight. The only problem with using this one-shot mode is if you go ahead and layer multiple, like let's say you want to go down here and there's two notes playing at the same time, right? You have C and A or C and G. It's only going to play one of those notes because it's in one-shot mode. See, it just skips right over those notes. But if you didn't want to do that, you could just put it back into classic mode and you can play with the attack, decay, and sustain rate here as well. I do this all the time, especially with 808s too. If you turn down the sustain, it's going to rely on the decay for how long the sound is going to stay moving for. Sometimes they put a little bit of attack on it too. You see how it softens up the initial hit of it? Like a little bit of attack, just like that, sounds really, really good. Now let's start making a signature Southside hi-hat pattern. One thing I like to do right off the bat is put it in narrow grid right here. And what that's gonna do is that whenever you zoom in, the grid lines are gonna get smaller. So that way I don't have to keep changing it. It just makes things easier on me. So I'm obviously gonna start with a two-step pattern here. So go ahead and get your two-step pattern out. And once you have the two-step hi-hat pattern, I'm gonna go ahead and turn triplets on, because a lot of his rolls and a lot of the best rolls sound the best in triplet. So if you're trying to figure out where to put these different rolls, the best places are going to be like before the snare hits or right after the snare hits, at the end of the 4 or 8 bar segments, or even contrasting with the 808s. So one thing he likes to do is right at the beginning here, he'll put in just a roll. So you can hear the snares hitting right here. So this little roll right before that first snare hits is what makes it sound good. Now, if we did one right after the snare hits too, it's going to sound great. So we'll let the 808 kind of have its little spot right here, and then we'll come over. Now, you could get in here super, super crazy with the rolls, but you don't hear Southside do that too much. Southside pretty much just uses the 16th and 8th. We'll even do a longer sort of a roll right here, kind of like drag it out a little bit more. Another thing you'll hear Southside doing from time to time is actually using some space in his hi-hat, so taking out notes every once in a while. So maybe we take this part out completely right here. But that's not the only place you could put them. You could put something towards the beginning too. If you wanted to, you could do little rolls on different notes as well, but don't put it too often, right? Sprinkle them in here or there. You don't want it to be constantly playing different notes. That's not going to sound good. Before we move on, let's take a look at a couple other examples. Okay, let's take a look at one last one. This one has a lot of processing on it as well, and we're going to get into processing in just a second, but take a listen to this. And one thing that we're doing differently on this one is we're actually using the velocities to go ahead and roll down. You could also do the opposite and have them start low and go up as well, but I tend to only use them if they're going down. I think it sounds best when you do it that way. So here's a really dope trick you can do too using two different hi-hats. We're going to have one hi-hat just doing, you know, the basic 4 on the floor. And the second one is going to be the one that has all the different rolls on it. So we're going to go ahead and pick out a different hi-hat to do the rolls. And maybe we pick something that sounds unique. So let's go ahead and find this. This is a free plugin, by the way, from Kilohertz. You should definitely download this. It's called the Haas. And what it's going to do is allow you to apply the Haas effect on either the left or the right channel. And what that does is it adds sort of like a delay, a separation between the stereo width of the two different channels, making it sound wider and fuller in the mix. So we're just putting this on the second hi-hat, and let's hear what it sounds like right out of the box. Another really cool thing you can do, let's turn this off really quick, is we could just pan this all the way to the right or left, and then we'll turn it down because it'll get quite loud once it's panned that far. All right, let's talk about some processing, and we're going to go back to the original hi-hat pattern that we made at the very beginning here, and let's add some effects. I want to show you the best things that you can put on your hi-hats. And we're going to go again to the Kilohertz. They have a dope plugin called Reverser. So let's go ahead and grab that. What this does is it reverses your sample in whatever sync you want to put it. We're just going to leave it right in that 16th, and we're going to turn the mix down a lot. But let's hear what it's doing. You can hear it's reversing every single note. So we want that effect, but we want it to be super subtle here. So let's turn it down. Now, there's another plugin that sounds really amazing on these hi-hats. Let's take a look at that right now. It's called Effectrix. One other thing is we can go ahead and put this tonal delay down the whole time, and there's a dope setting on here called Resotonic. One other little secret gem that I've seen nobody talk about is if you throw halftime on your hi-hat as well. And you could go ahead and turn down the mix, and it might sound good, but there's a better way to do it. If we go ahead and group this Command-G, Control-G on Windows, we're going to go ahead and group this. Let's go ahead and open this up, and we're going to create another chain. So basically, we have one chain with no halftime on it, and we're going to have a second chain with the hi-hat turned up to 100% mix. So that way, we can turn down the volume on this halftime and dial it in perfect. Because it's going to add those bottom notes, right? So we want that to play maybe not so loud. So let's turn it down. So we put a ton of effects on here, and you don't have to do this every single time, but let me show you a couple other effects that work really nicely as well. The first thing is obviously using just a little bit of reverb, and just use any reverb that you like. One that I really like is this Valhalla room, and what I'm going to do is I have a preset here. You can just copy it. For this, I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of these other effects so it's not as crazy. We can actually hear what's going on. So let's actually play with this. So that sounds good to me right there. 10%, 11% sounds good. The other thing that sounds amazing on your hi-hats is if you do a little bit of panning on them, especially since they sit in the middle or off to the right or left just a little bit. There's a bunch of ways to do this. For instance, if you go into your controls right here, you have some random panning that you can use, but don't go too crazy with this. Maybe just a couple percent sounds good. But I like to use panning plugins, and there's all kinds of them. You can get Pancake for free, and this has some dope settings right here for going ahead and panning your hi-hat. So we might turn this down to 1 bar. Cool, now let's turn down the mix. I want to hear what it sounds like with all of these effects that we just applied. I know this is a lot, but it might be crazy. Hold your horses. Let's see. I'm not really liking it. It's a little bit too much for my taste. All right, guys, and as a little gift, since you guys watched this video all the way to the end, I'm actually going to give you a free pack of all the best hi-hats that work for this, all the hi-hat samples that Southside likes to use himself. I'm also going to send you all of these MIDIs that we went ahead and made here today and that I showed you so that you can have them and play with them and learn from them as well. And besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys need help getting your 808s right, your 808 patterns slapping, go ahead and watch this video next because I put in so much work to make this the best video on 808s ever. Go ahead and watch that, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.